So today I want to go over an article that I found that's really, really good that I like, and it's entitled 10 Strategies to Support Hearing Impaired Students in the Classroom. And early on, some of the main ideas that it kind of discusses is like the reasons behind children suffering. Why are they suffering, or why do they suffer from hearing impairment of any sort, any kind? There's a lot of different varieties. And one of the main reasons it says is because of genetic factors. Just because the way they're born, sometimes that's just the way things, they're just born with it, just like students are born with, like a cleft palate or things of that nature. It's just one of those disabilities that they're born with and that they come out of the womb like. And then one of the other reasons that is a little different is illnesses, and this is something that you'd have to do more research on because I don't really know like the illnesses that cause hearing loss specifically. But it just lists that as one of the things. So with further research, you could actually probably uncover some really good stuff. And then one of the other reasons is because of accidents. If they get in a wreck or they crush their eardrum, or I think like a farming accident or anything like that, loud noise right beside their ear, or even if it's over time, over time their eardrum is damaged and stuff like that, would be considered an accident. And then another one that would require more research is because of like problems in pregnancy. If a mom has problems, then it could the child could suffer in some way, shape, or form, and that one would require more research too. And then, signs of hearing problems, and this is more for the teacher, and this is really, really good because it can kind of help us as educators like be able to spot, even if they're not, or especially if they're not identified as so. If they come in and that's in their IEP, then that's, you understand what the problem is, but there's other ways, and it might not be as severe in some students, so it's probably not diagnosed or something like that, but some of the telltale signs that it says is, like to, I guess, kind of see this, or like those little things that students do to be able to tell, like, hey, maybe they have a problem with hearing. One of the things is like if they turn their ear like toward the noise. So if you see like a student like turn and like try to listen like that, or something like that, like we see a lot of older people do, just because you lose hearing or you lose hearing over time. And then, or if they favor one ear over the other, one ear might be worse because of an accident specifically, or something of that nature, if they're favoring it, or like one ear or the other, and that's the ear that they're always listening with, you might know that they have a problem with the other one. And then lack of following through with directions. And this is something that it's really easy to get mad at students when they don't follow your directions exactly, or they don't follow the rules when you try to explain it before you go into an activity or a project or a lab or anything of that nature, depending on what subject matter you're in. But if they have trouble following through with them, and it's honestly just because they probably didn't hear you, so they don't really know exactly what they're supposed to do because they didn't hear all the directions. They might have heard most of it, so they have a kind of idea, so they'll kind of know what to do, but they'll miss the little stuff that you want them to do. And it's easy to get mad at them, but you need to be looking for those signs so you know that, hey, this isn't a student that's just not caring or anything like that. This is a student that they didn't actually hear what I had to say, and maybe that's a problem that we should look into. And then delayed speech. So if you say something to a student and it takes them a long time to process it, that means they probably didn't hear it as well. So that processing, it takes them a second to gather everything that they heard and kind of use context clues and people's reactions and stuff like that we all use sometimes when we can't hear some. But if it happens continuously, then you know that if they're delaying to answer, or they're trying to think of what you said and they finally come to answer, that delayed speech is a telltale sign of some of those problems. And then one of the best parts about this article is, and the name of it kind of gives it away, but it's the strategies for like teachers to use to address these students that are hearing disabled. And some of them I listed are just, these aren't all of them, but these are just a few of the really good ones I thought. Make sure these students wear amplification devices. This one is straightforward, especially if this is in their IEP, or this is something that if you see them struggling with, even if it's in their IEP, this is something that you could suggest so that the student doesn't miss what you're trying to say. And then some of the ones are a little more practical, just like allow them to sit where they think is best. If they can't hear in the back and they want to move to the front, that's fine. You can let them do that as well. And then another one, if they are wearing amplification devices, which I've actually seen this as like a teacher that I did a review or a observation in Carthage at a elementary, like a primary, and one of the teachers, he used like a microphone and like the students could hear it, which it was for like the whole class, but one of those things. But you can't, when you're wearing one of those, especially if it's directly to a student, you can't shout into it, because if you shout, then obviously you're going to startle the student, and then everybody gets sidetracked, or one of those deals. It's just like if you're shouting right in their ear. So you don't want to shout, and you want to be careful if they're wearing one of those. Enhance lessons in other ways too. This is really good ones. use like visuals, or use large print or anything like that, where students can read what you're trying to can read the information that you're trying to convey, or they can see it, or they can process it in another way if their hearing isn't great. And then use a lot of print, kind of like I just said. You can really emphasize vocabulary. Use a lot of print, visuals where they can see and they can process stuff, especially even if it's reading. I mean, if you're going to read something out loud, you might just give them a copy of it too, so they can follow along, or they can read it themselves. And then only speak while facing forward. Another practical one, just like you would with any person. If you're talking to somebody, you want to be facing them. You want them to be able to see your mouth. So they can. Some students can lip read, or some of them just can hear you a little better if you're looking at them. And then I think one of the reasons that this article is so important is because the odds of us teaching one of these students, especially if you're a 25, 30-year veteran teacher, is you're probably going to come in. I mean, it's really high. You're probably going to come into contact with one of these students. And we need to be prepared, because we need to be able to accommodate any type of student that has a disability, even if it's we think of like learning disabilities, or the ones that are more prevalent, I guess you could say. But we need to be able to address and be able to accommodate for these type of students. So that takes preparation and being able to know what to do in those situations. And then another reason is I just think it's important that we reach every student. It's our right, it's our privilege to be able to teach these students and to have them in our care. So we need to make sure that we're doing all that we can so they can get the content, so they can be a lot smarter and better and stronger as they move through their school career. And then obviously I think this connects because it just discusses the ways that you can reach these students the most effectively, and identifies some of the things that you can see, so you can understand, like maybe this student does have a disability that involves hearing or anything like that. And then it addresses the strategies. So this is what I can do. So it says, here's what's wrong, and then here's what I can do to fix it. So thank you. That's it.